The other presenters, we do want to keep, because there are a lot of other people too, we want to keep remarks to no more than 5 minutes if possible. And with that, I will ask Doris Russell, SEIU provider, Local 99.
Good morning. My name is Doris Russell, and I've been a licensed child care provider for over 20 years. I live in Palmdale, California, where the poverty rate is high. But I've seen firsthand how access to quality subsidized child care like mine can make and help parents, help them come out of poverty. I have one parent who was so determined that she put herself through nursing school while I cared for her children on subsidized child care. With my child care services, without my child care service, I don't know how she would have made it. She has 3 children. Excuse me, I'm really nervous.
That's all right. Take your time. Take your time.
Just tell your story.
Yeah, the 5 minutes is just a target. Don't worry about it.
This parent, I just want to talk. This parent had 3 children. I've had this family for over 12 years. Most of my families have been over 12 years. Most of my families work odd hours. No one works 9 to 5. And so you have to go over and above. And I understand that they pay me to keep these children for certain hours. They say, do not keep this child over this amount, because if you can't do it for the world, then you can't make a difference. But how do you tell a parent when the CCRC tell you that this parent only get 8 hours? This job say this parent have to work 9.5 hours. How do you say to them, I can't watch your children? You have to come get them after the 8 hours. This is child care, but it's more than child care. Because not only do you watch the children, you have to love the child, you have to love the family, you have to work with the family and the extended family. It's not just a one-man job. Everyone that works 24 hours a day and have a family. I've been married over 35 years. So my husband takes and needs time and wanted me to go to basketball games with him. I don't even like basketball. But I have to go.
That's right.
But I have to go to accommodate him. And at the same time, I have to accommodate these children. I try to do things for my children that the little money that I get from them. I had calculated this a while ago, and I make $2.47 an hour. $2.47. They want us, we're boosting up the minimum rate. I would love to go to work at McDonald's and get the $15. I'm not getting it at home. And so I help my parents. My parents are RNs now, McDonald's workers, trash people, and postal workers. And they work all hours. And if I'm not there to help them, then who's gonna help them? Everyone's not open 24 hours. I retired twice. They came back twice. No one would really go because it's hard to find good quality care. And I'm a good cook. that they would bring their children back and want them to stay. I can put them on timeout, but I love them. I don't mistreat them. And I think that we child care providers are some of the best people because we love your children just like you do. And I'm here and I'm asking you to support this SB 548, that we can continue to help our children because our children are our future.
Well, thank you. I think the families you're working with are very fortunate to have you. So thank you for that. We move now to,
I'm so sorry, can I just add?
Oh, I'm
SB 548, does anyone know which?
I speak as the De Leon bill, I don't know. Who's the author of the bill?
De Leon.
Okay, all right, I understand that one, yeah, okay, thank you, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll move on now to Celine Crimston, Vice President and COO of Educational Enrichment Services of San Diego.
Good morning, and thank you for having me today. I am the Vice President and COO of Educational Enrichment Systems down in San Diego. We're a nonprofit organization that provides that offers low-income working families the opportunities to become self-sufficient, providing their children with full-time, part-time, quality early education in a Title V program. I've been with the EES for over 22 years. The California Department of Education has contracted with the EES since 1979 to educate over 1,100 students a year at our 22 Title V early education centers. EES is proud of the commitment to excellence that is brought to the early learning programs throughout San Diego. Our mission is to create opportunities for the underserved to become future leaders through quality education, strength, and preserve the family to all those who influence the lives of children. Most early education teachers choose a career in early childhood education because they love children and because their work will help foster excitement about learning. They understand that an early education is the foundation for academic success and believe passionately that every child deserves high-quality education. With the solid foundation set by early education programs, young people are more likely to perform well in school and make valuable contributions to our community. During the last 22 years with the ES, I have worked with some of the most dedicated teachers in the county. They couple academic learning with fun, and as a result, children thrive. Young children see school as a place where they can play with friends and teachers, and they are learning about reading, math, science, and becoming lifelong learners. The ripple effect from quality early education benefits our community both economically and socially. Children who attend quality early education centers generally perform better in elementary schools, and their parents are far more involved in their academic journey. Students who achieve academic success are less likely to drop out of high school, abuse drugs, need public assistance, and commit crime. Students whose love of learning, who have been fostered from a young age, are far more likely to become what our region needs most in the future: highly educated, skilled, and productive youth prepared to move us forward in the fields of technology, medicine, arts, and education. Then why does the reimbursement rate to these Title V programs undermine the ability to some early education centers to operate effectively? Title V centers are the lowest reimbursed license provider by our state, yet they're the only program subject to higher education standards and are reimbursed at the lowest rate. The chart I've provided to you demonstrates as an example in San Diego, the teacher-to-student ratio at Title V centers is 1:8, whereas the state only requires a 1:12 ratio in Title 22 programs. Teachers at Title V centers are required to have twice the number of college early education units than their Title 22 counterparts, and further, at Title V centers, teacher qualifications are higher, as are the standards for student assessment, program requirement, and monitoring by the state. There's not a single area in which the requirements for Title V early education centers are not equal to or greater than those of Title 22 centers. The lopsided reimbursement rates create very real problems for Title V centers like ES. When our state reimbursement rate is painfully as low as it is, it means salaries hover just above minimum wage for teachers. As a result, we have a turnover rate that significantly impacts our ability to create the stable and consistent environment that our children deserve. When we experience a turnover rate of 47% a year, it is the children who suffer. I have seen far too many tearful resignations where teachers tell us that they love their work and want to make a difference and help in preparing children to be kindergarten ready, but they can no longer subsidize the schools by accepting the low wages. It is heartbreaking for both the teachers and the young students. Research consistently shows that the continuity of care is one of the key elements for quality care. Thriving in a pre-kindergarten classroom is difficult when there have been 3 different teachers in 1 year. If we want our great state to be a place where all children have an equal shot at success, we must begin with early education. We should create economic stability for teachers so they can contribute doing their important work. We cannot continue losing early education teachers because they can't support their own families. The standard reimbursement rate for Title V programs must be equal at a minimum to the current market rates. As you can see, An important piece of our message is the disparity in the rates for the Title V centers. EES is contracted under Title V, and we're reimbursed at $36.10 per day. In 2009, the regional market rate in San Diego was $64.28. If California is working towards creating what our region needs most, highly educated, skilled, and productive youth preparing to improve their quality of life and empowered through technology, medicine, arts, and education, the standard reimbursement rate to Title V programs must be increased. There are dozens of studies that establish the importance of early education, but one needn't look farther than the graduates of EES for proof that early education can make a significant difference. Providing EES staff with a professional wage is good for children, the agency, and the staff. No more is that more true than when EES, where families face economic instability and often turbulent home lives. Jeanette, a mother of 4.
I'll ask you to start wrapping up. We're just over 5 minutes.
Absolutely. I guess I can just summarize it here. We really need that state reimbursement rate to be at least equal to the regional market rate. And also to help our families to stay in the program longer, we need the income ceilings raised. Right now, if there is a family of 4, 2 parents are working, if they're making $11.50, they do not qualify for state-funded programs. $11.50, and we're looking at minimum wage being $10 in January. When those families are told, and I am so glad that I am not the one that has to tell them, that they no longer qualify for this program, they're faced with $11,000 in childcare cost a year. Where is a family that makes $47,000 a year supposed to get that kind of money? If we raise the income ceiling rate and parents get to stay in longer, and they can get those 50-cent raises and those dollar raises, instead of turning them down, which is what the families tell us they do all the time. They turn down raises, they decrease their hours just to stay in the program because not having subsidized childcare, the cost of having to pay for it, it's far less if they just not take it. But
Thank you, Ms. Crimston.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. We'll move on now to our final panelist, Christina Alvarado, Executive Director of Child Care Alliance of LA.
Thank you, and thank you for asking me to address you today. I'm the Executive Director of the Child Care Alliance. We're a partnership of 10 alternative payment and resource and referral agencies in Los Angeles County. We've been working together for 18 years, and LA County represents about 30% of the total programs in these categories. We serve 45,000 children each month through child care subsidy programs. We work with 18,000 licensed and license-exempt providers. We offer training workshops to more than 2,000 child care providers and annually coach 1,000 providers on an individualized basis. And we provide an average of 28,000 requests for resource and referral services. We all know the significance of the early years, as well as the importance between high-quality care and the training and education received by child care providers. We support the reinvestment priorities outlined by the Women's Caucus as defined by Senator Hannah Beth Jackson earlier today. I would add infrastructure to that formula, so you have a 3-legged stool: rates, slots, and infrastructure. With the first being rates, with a new report from UC Berkeley, it compared the earnings of providers, what they earn now, to what they earned 25 years ago. It was just released a couple of weeks ago. And not surprisingly, little has changed. Child care workers are making the same amount of money as they were 25 years ago. Regarding the state subsidized programs, because the state set ceilings, as you've heard, at the 85th percentile, families can only choose so many providers. If they choose providers above that, they have to pay the difference. Well, in LA County, our subsidized families earn an average salary of $16,000 a year. With a salary of $16,000 a year, there's no way they can pay for additional child care. Last year, as you also heard, the state is moving in the right direction. You've provided some increases to the 2006, since 2006, but this was a small impact overall in the field. And as an example, a family child care provider in LA County who cares for infants to 24 months saw no increase at all this year. The rates for a similar provider, if they were to be charging at the 2014 market rate, is 35% higher. In fairness, some rates did go up, some went down, as you saw that chart. Because there are so many rates, there's thousands of rates in the RMR, it's hard to pin everything down, but I think the important takeaway for today is that providers in general are still being paid really below the market rate. The second leg of the stool is spaces. There's no question that families need childcare, especially babies and toddlers. However, increases in spaces must go hand in hand with increased quality in order to make a difference in a child's life. In the alternative payment program, we currently serve in all of Los Angeles County 5,200 families. And our local waiting list altogether is 43,000 children. So in considering increases to slots, I would urge you to think about the alternative payment program, which is so low and has so many families waiting for the lowest income families. And then the last step of the stool is infrastructure, and that is the capacity of agencies and programs to do their work effectively. Earlier, I mentioned the increased capacity in Los Angeles County agencies to provide professional development and coaching to the early learning field. We've accomplished this by leveraging local and federal dollars to support our work to increase the quality of care for children in our communities. It's critical that the state of California continue meaningful conversations that will lead us as a state into a continued quality improvement for all children in care, and that we tie rates to quality-driven reimbursement systems. That way, every child has an opportunity to thrive in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will ask members of the committee if there are any questions or comments for these panelists. Senator Mitchell?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the chart. It's helpful, but I want to make sure that it's accurate. I see here that you, in your comparison of the reimbursement rates for full-time care, that you have which percent of the 09 market rate that amount equals. But at the top, you say the case study for San Diego, $64 is a 2009 daily market rate for child care, but that's not adjusted to the percent that we pay. So even though that might be what the regional market rate says, the state doesn't pay that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
You're talking about the lower rates down below?
Right, because they reflect that's 85% of the
Correct.
09 market rate. So I just don't want us to think that anybody's getting this. Nobody is.
Sure. The reason for that rate there is just to show what the true cost of quality early education is.
Got it.
And that is the true cost that we are at about 44% of.
Based of the market. Got it. Okay. So then Title V versus Title 22, which are federal requirements.
Correct.
Just so we're clear in terms of what federal requirements that we're all required to abide by. So for Title V centers, as in Title V, these qualifications are primarily set about through federal statute or state?
Those are state. Those are from the Department of Education.
These are all state?
Yes, they are.
Got it. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And let me ask you regarding teacher credentialing, or the Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
Yes.
All of your staff, your lead staff, have credentials?
All of our lead teachers are mandated to have permits through the commission. Yes, they are.
Are they part of bargaining units?
We at EES do not have a union. There are some Title V programs in the state of California that do have unions. We are not one of those.
For those that do, are they typically CTA or SEIU, or what would they be?
I can't speak onto that. I don't know if somebody else can.
Okay.
I think it varies.
The reason I'm asking these questions is we've talked about moving Prop 98 money, because that's where the money is,
Follow the money.
to help with some of these child care facilities. And if your staff who are lead teachers can be characterized as qualified recipients under Prop 98, staff, not those you serve, that makes it easier to do this. So the reason for the question,
We
thank
lose
you.
teachers every year to the K through 12 system because of their permits and their credentials, and to TK.
Sure, sure. Any other questions or comments for this panel? Seeing none, I want to thank you and excuse you.
Thank you.
And with that, we've finished now the informational items on our agenda. We now will move to issue number 1, and for the next 3 issues, I will turn over the gavel to my colleague, Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. Let me catch up with myself here on my agenda. So for issue number 1, the governor's budget and trailer bill number 300, the education trailer bill. Master, again, this is for informational purposes only, colleagues. We will invite finance and ask the LAO to return. And those of you who are following along on the agenda, we're on page 12 of the agenda. So finance is making the presentation. Go ahead.
Good morning, Jessica Holmes, Department of Finance. The governor's budget balances spending for childcare, early learning, and after-school programs with available resources and provides a measured approach to restoring ongoing funding to these programs. Total spending in the governor's budget for childcare, early learning, and after-school programs is $3.2 billion. As Ms. Chu mentioned earlier, this is split up between about 1/3 federal funding, mostly through the Child Care and Development Block Grant, and about 2/3 of general fund split between Proposition 98 and non-98 funding. Within the governor's budget, child care and early learning programs have increased ongoing funding of $95 million. This increase is composed of several different adjustments. Growth is included in that, CalWORK's caseload adjustments, the full cost of 4,000 full-day state preschool slots that were included as part of the 2014 Budget Act, as well as a full-year update of the regional market rate to the levels previously discussed by Ms. Chu. Also included in this $95 million is a cost of living adjustment for non-CalWORKs programs, and this is the first cost of living adjustment that these programs have received since 2007-2008. For our CalWORKs caseload adjustments, overall CalWORKs childcare funding for stages 1 through 3 is increased by $28 million. And this reflects a significant increase of the cost of providing care, tempered slightly by a reduction in overall caseload between these 3 programs of about 4,300. We're continuing to work with the Department of Social Services, the Department of Education, as well as the Legislative Analyst's Office on new data that's coming in for 14-15 and looking at trends, and we'll have new updated estimates for you in the May revision. In addition to funding adjustments, the governor's budget includes proposed trailer bill language intended to help streamline the administration of our child care and early learning programs. Through conversations with stakeholders, it appears that there may be opportunities to reduce workload associated with data reporting and provide flexibility to voucher administrators in implementing program changes. To this end, we proposed 2 stakeholder work groups, one focused on direct contracted providers and the other on alternative payment agencies, which would see representatives from these entities working with the Department of Education, Social Services, and First 5 California to make recommendations on actionable changes the state could make to improve program administration. As we build the May revision, we will take into account, as I mentioned before, changes in CalWORK's caseload, trends that are developing in that area, as well as updates of growth and COLA factors. In addition, we anticipate that federal child care and development block grant reauthorization will provide us with opportunities for, with challenges and opportunities as we move forward in the budget process. We're committed to working with the Departments of Education and Social Services, stakeholders, and the legislature to ensure that the state's reauthorization plan supports the quality of our early learning programs while protecting the state's ongoing fiscal stability. Thanks so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from any members? I have one quick question. It triggered it when you talked about the stakeholder process, because I've said publicly many times that I decided to run for office because I got tired of either serving or sending staff to serve on stakeholder convenings where we didn't always see any outcome. So this stakeholder process is going to be convened by Finance or Department of Education? And will it be to focus on the budget aspect of these programs or programmatic changes?
So the idea is that this would be a convening of multiple departments, not finance, social services, First 5, and CDE, as well as specifically providers in each of these 2 separate areas to work on recommending changes that could help reduce some of the possibly duplicative or cumbersome workload associated with some of the requirements for these programs. So one really easy example to give is in our Title V programs, a lot of our state preschool providers also have contracts for federal Head Start. They also have contracts maybe for AP slots through general child care. And we know that a lot of times they have to report on very similar data, but it has to be done in a different way and at different times.
With wet ink signatures and a lot of very archaic methodology.
So to the extent that we can help to make that a little bit simpler for providers, those are some of the goals that we're looking for.
And there's a commitment from the administration that once people spend their time in the stakeholder process, that some of the recommendations will actually be reflected in the administration's budget and implemented.
Without a plan, I can't guarantee anything. However, I can definitely guarantee that we will consider the recommendations of the work groups.
Excellent. Okay. Seeing no further questions, LAO. Ms. Chu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't have anything to add except that we would just recommend to the legislature that should the legislature wish to pursue these work groups, that the work groups also be asked to look at the new requirements under the Child Care and Development Block Grant, which may have some implications for the administrative elements that they're going to be reviewing, just to make sure that were we to make changes to the requirements of these programs, that they were in line with the new federal requirements.
Does the LAO ever participate in these work groups?
The LAO often observes these work groups, so attends the meetings, but it does not necessarily come forward saying.
But you're in the room.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
fair enough. Senator Block.
Yeah, I've got a couple of general questions, and this may not be the right topic, but it's certainly the right people to ask these questions to. The first has to do with, again, to say what I said earlier, it's becoming clear to us that we will have a significant Prop 98 dollars available this year in addition to what was originally budgeted. And it's also becoming clear, unfortunately, we won't have many, if any, dollars available to the general fund outside of Prop 98. That leads us to look at how we can best use Prop 98 dollars to solve problems we have in different areas and to meet the needs, particularly in early learning and child care. One place where we have Prop 98 dollars available is for community colleges. Many of our community colleges have developmental child care labs to really have students in child development work child care. And this can meet, these labs, if they're greatly expanded, could probably meet a small portion of the demand. Any thought been given to using Prop 98 dollars for that? I'm sorry we don't have the community college folks here to talk about that.
Without a specific proposal, what I can do is sort of provide you some information on currently how those lab schools are funded. Many of our lab schools have contracts with the Department of Education to fund the slots that are available in those schools. That's not to say that those are the only slots available in those lab schools, but they do receive some funding through contracts, and that's mostly through state preschool, but there's also some contract funding, I understand, through general child care, which is on the non-98 side of the budget, as well as some alternative payment program funding as well. In addition, we understand that some of the cost of providing these programs is also subsidized through spending by the community colleges for things like salaries for the professors, as well as some infrastructure. So currently, that provision of care is done through a mix of funding sources, not entirely 98, but there is some 98 in there.
So if a local community college board of trustees were to decide to hire additional faculty or staff to teach those, to work in those labs, that would be an appropriate use of Prop 98 dollars.
To the extent that it's used for instruction,
Okay.
for college instruction. Yes.
Thank you. One similar question, but different a little bit. We know that most of the Prop 98 money that's going to be surplus will be, and I use the term surplus lightly, will be, because all the schools can use it, will be one-time money. So looking at how Prop 98 one-time money might be used by school districts or community colleges to help in the child care early learning arena, I think there might be some professional development or facilities grants that might be used. But what does the LAO think about that?
Sure. So yes, there will be significant one-time funds in the current year under Proposition 98. Last year, the legislature provided $25 million in one-time quality grants, which the governor does not continue. So that could be one use, would be to continue that similar grant structure. In addition, there was $10 million in one-time facilities funding, which actually goes out on a loan basis in a revolving fund, but the legislature could also opt to augment that fund, since one of the issues we know is out there in the field for expansion of state preschool are available facilities. So that potentially could help set the stage for further expansion of state preschool in the future if the legislature wished to do that.
Great. Yes.
I would just add that the $25 million in professional development funds that were provided last year, of those $15 million are available through 2017.
Oh, great. Thank you both.
Anything else? Any questions from any of the members of the panel? And we're going to take public comment at the end of these three issues. So we will transition to issue 2, again under oversight, implementation of the Budget Act of 2014. We will be joined by representatives from Department of Education, Monique Ramos, Director of Government Affairs, CDE, Deborah McManus, Director of Early Education and Support Division within CDE. Ms. Ramos.
Good morning, Monique Ramos on behalf of the Department of Education. So we briefly wanted to give you an overview of essentially how the dollars have been going out from last year's, from the current year's Budget Act, the 14-15 Budget Act. So the legislature gave allocated dollars for 7,500 full-day, full-year slots for the state preschool program. The department received 203 funding requests that totaled about 10,000 slots. We were able to allocate 6,100 full-day slots and then an additional 4,100 part-day slots. We were essentially able to fulfill all the requests that we received. Children and families will begin receiving services as of October 1st. So I'm sure the question's going to be asked, so we'll just address it. We only received 6,100 requests for full-day slots. We were not able to get enough requests for the 7,500. So we went ahead and backfilled the additional dollars with those part-day slots in order to provide more care. Moving on to the restoration of 1,000 slots for general child care programs. Obviously, the priority was for infants and toddlers. We received 87 funding requests that totaled 2,700 slots. We were able to fund 1,300 slots, which left a remaining 1,400 slots unfunded because the funding was exhausted at that time. And children and families can begin receiving services as of December 1, 2014. Moving on to the increase of an additional 4,000 slots to expand the preschool programs. So we received letters of intent that equaled 32,000 slots. And we want to be clear, we do not think that is all the need that is out there. We only think those are the folks that had capacity to apply for the intent. We want to make sure that's clear to everybody. So then what we actually received was 138 applications that totaled 9,900 slots, almost 10,000. At this point, we will be releasing the awards of these slots by the end of the month. So I can't tell you at this point how many we actually have. And those will be available for families as of July 2015. Moving on to the facilities and renovation and repair loans. As of March of 2015, we had received loan requests that equaled $1.2 million. All those requests are coming from LEAs that operate state preschool programs. Moving on to the QRIS block grant, we received a total of 23 consortium leads. I'm sorry, we awarded 23 consortiums the dollars. We anticipate that will, in 2014, that equaled about almost 3,000 sites that will be serving 117,000 children. The targets for this year are 2,100 sites serving 64,000 additional children. As a reminder, 80% of those dollars go directly to the state preschool provider, either through local QRIS block grants or through improvement quality activities. For consortiums or for providers that have reached essentially tier 4 or 5 of the block grant, reminding folks that this is a tiered system that is locally determined with 3 tiers that are consistent throughout the state. Those that reach the highest tiers have flexibility with those dollars to provide raises, professional development, and other efforts to maintain quality. And then lastly, there was the $25 million to support transitional kindergarten teachers. $15 million is out in educational stipends for TK teachers through local planning council grants. It's a reimbursement program, and teachers have until June of 2017 to make those requests. And then the additional $10 million will be going out in professional development for transitional kindergarten teachers to be used for training modules and training opportunities. And then with me, I just want to mention I have Deborah McManus, the director of our Early Learning Support Division, to answer any questions.
Colleagues? I've got one question based on the LAO report, and it deals with the RMR and the methodology. First, let me back up. I appreciate you acknowledging the fact that the number of facilities that submitted intent doesn't reflect. Because, I think the reality since '08, both the provider community and parents in need of care are, still recovering from post-traumatic stress because every year it's a yo-yo. We have slots, we cut slots. We have slots, we cut slots. There was a point in time when I ran Crystal Stairs that I sent 3 letters and 3 automated messages to the same group of parents inside of 30 days saying, stage 3's been cut. Oh, stage 3's back on. Hurry up and roll. Oh, sorry, we're capped. And so with policy and budget changes we've made in this body, it's created such a peak and valley kind of trend that I'm not surprised that folks are like, what are they asking of us now? Is the money real? Can we apply? So we should be thoughtful about that, as we do whatever we do, that if the uptake isn't instantaneous, that we don't make assumptions that the need doesn't exist. No, it takes a minute to roll the information out, and we've created this post-traumatic response from the field. So I appreciate you making that statement that it really shouldn't reflect the need in the community. Regional market rate. Yes. My colleague acknowledged how complex it is, and why don't we just, tell the truth and go with the current market rate, and if we can't afford to pay it, acknowledge that, as opposed to this unique, the 50th percentile of the 2005 rate. I was struck by the LAO's report at the number of family child care homes who actually received an increase based on like 26 counties for infants. All we hear is the need for infant care. We as a legislature thought we voted for increased rates, and yet when we look at actual application, it's disappointing at best. It has been argued that the survey methodology is also perhaps unnecessarily complicated. Perhaps we're not using current technology to make the actual survey process make more sense, more efficient. Can you talk about what the current methodology is? I know that it has changed over years. I was a part of an organization that did an analysis on the survey 05-06, where our analysis suggested that providers in predominantly low-income communities of color took a disproportionate negative hit based on the rollout of a new methodology. So the way in which we conduct the survey is critical in terms of fairness and equity across the board. So can you talk about the current methodology, if it will change, how it will change, and what we can do to make sure that counties and providers are available to take advantage of decisions we make as a legislative body to increase rates?
Good afternoon, Debbie McManus, Department of Education. The current methodology used for the RMR survey was approved by the Department of Finance, the LAO, the Department of Education, and Department of Social Services in the 2005 survey. And so it has not changed since then.
Since I did this report saying magnifying inequality. Okay, I'll share it with you. That's a problem.
So in order to change the methodology, CDE believes that we would need legislative authority that would be necessary to bring these groups back together to come to an agreement on what that methodology should be.
Well, again, let me just say that it really was a study that my agency took the lead on, but we had numerous partners, and we concluded that system, which utilized zip codes, generally resulted in lower rate ceilings in minority neighborhoods and in low-income neighborhoods. And so if that's the methodology that's continuing to be used, perhaps we will continue to see fewer counties receiving increases in their RMRs, fewer high-need provider categories like the infants and toddlers who are receiving the benefit if the methodology itself is disadvantaging them.
So I would just say we don't have technical staff here to go through the survey, and I'm happy to follow up with staff to walk through that with you. But I would say, the department is happy to review and look at the methodology, but we view this as part of a budget deal from that year. So we feel that we do need legislative intent to tell us to go back and redo the survey methodology, but happy to do that if that's the direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from committee members? Finance, any comments or questions to add?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.